Welcome to our today's guest, Mr. Sushant Potdar. He has completed his diploma in computer engineering from our college and passed out at 2005. He has completed his bachelor degree in information of technology from University of Pune, pass out year 2008. He has achieved a proficiency in Azure DevOps, Terraform, Kubernetes, Docker, CI/CD, solution architecture, Azure Cloud, and he truly sets a benchmark for his achievements. He worked as a software engineer at Mastech Limited from 2008 to 2011, then as a senior software engineer at Persistent from 2011 to 2013. Then as an application development specialist at Accenture Services from uh, 2013 to 2016. Then as a consultant infrastructure automation at Northern Trust. Then as a cloud DevOps lead at TCS from 2019 till present. And sir, I welcome you again. And we are very fortunate that you are here and you are giving your valuable time and valuable knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thanks. This is one of the warm welcome I ever had. That's good. Good to
Thank
hear
you, sir.
people are going through profiles, going through all the background. That's good. Yeah, you want to talk, sir?
Yes. Before starting the session, I want to say something about the Sushant.
Yeah, that's
Everybody, can you hear me?
yeah, I can.
Yes. Basically, he was in a ICRE. Then he was very naughty boy, Sushant. But he was sincere. He was good observer, and he has in his mind he is having many things or kind of thoughts. He was multitasking at the time also. Then actually he was in my touch from when he has taken admission into the college till graduation completion, and we were just talking on Facebook regarding that session. When I asked about the session or guest lecture, so suddenly or immediately he agreed for that. Just we have decided the date, and today we are here for the guest lecture here. So I welcome Sushant here.
Thanks, sir.
And I
was
request
only
you to
naughty.
continue the session.
I was only naughty, not multitasker.
You were.
Okay. No, that was a phase where everyone should enjoy the education and the uh, other part of life. Maybe sports, singing. I was part of it. I was even part of some fights. That's not fun. Okay. Uh, uh, as you know, Tanvi has already introduced me. I have been in touch with ICRE for almost every day, maybe. Some of the people are talking about the college, my friends, and we always talk about the days when we started our diploma. Okay, it was long back, but I haven't visited. When I last time visited, Ranjit Sarmi pulled me into a session directly. I remember, and he asked me to talk on something, but that was very uh, quick one. I had to
Yeah.
talk for 10 minutes, and I just went out. I was there to visit a college just for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then he was insisted to get into a session. Uh, let's let's start the session today. Let me share my screen so that you'll have uh, the agenda, what we are covering today. Let me know once you see my screen, okay? Just a minute. Window. Able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good. So, as you know about the topic already, but we will cover something around what is cloud, then what are the types of cloud, then what are the services which are provided by the cloud, and as a demo, we can talk about one of the largest cloud in the market, that is Azure from Microsoft. Um, this small demo we can cover on the website deployment, the smallest deployment part, and then we can have a QA session. There was one more topic sir wanted me to include. I haven't added into the agenda, but you can cover it as a additional part as a cloud security. Okay, but we'll talk about it later. If you have any questions, probably we can park it at the end so that we'll have a combined, you know, Q&A session. Everyone can get those answers for you. That's fine. So we can move. What is cloud? Basically, when you say cloud, people think about what all services they get from the cloud. Cloud is something which is a virtualized platform for everyone, and no one knows what is going behind the scene. Okay, when you ask for a virtual machine on the cloud, you don't know how it is provisioned, how it is built. So that is the quality of the cloud, where you don't know what is going behind the scene, and you are just worry about what you get. Like for example, you want a virtual machine, it will give you the virtual machine. You don't have to worry about what is their hardware, what is the provisioning methodology. Nothing you want to worry about. So in this is the uh, this is the complex definition of cloud. So it's a style of computing which is scalable and elastic enabled capabilities. When you say elastic enabled capabilities, those are scalable and elastic. When you say scalable, you can improve the performance of those services on the fly. And when we say elastic, you can add multiple services at given point of time. If you want to add one more virtual machine on the basis of hardware load, then you can do it. So something called as elastic in the cloud terminologies. And all these services are delivered through internet. So you don't have any other mechanism like in a special software to go and buy a cloud service. You have that internet based. So this is a complex definition, but in a simple word, um, whatever software needs you want to buy or provision, those are uh, given as a service in a cloud. So there's a simple definition. Okay. What are the types of clouds? There are basic three of them. One is public, the other is private, and hybrid. When you say public cloud, it's basically, as I said, it's everything open for everyone, like you, me, and any other organization or anyone in the world can get the service from the public cloud. So it's open for everyone. They need to pay for it, and they pay for the service they want. Uh, that is public. When you say private, it is only limited to your organization. For example, VMware, you have the cloud platform within your organization, and you can provision the virtual machine, application, networks, storages. Those services are only catered for your organization. So that is private cloud, and it's a hybrid cloud is combination of both of them. Okay, we'll go one by one. So as I said, public is internet based, and you can share the resources across organizations. So any organization within world can uh, buy or provision any service from the public cloud. When you say private, it's only dedicated to your organization. Okay? And when you say hybrid, it's combination of both or multiple. Like I want to get something from Azure, I want to get something from AWS, but I also have my own data center where I am running my internal cloud. So it's kind of combination of all the clouds. Okay. Uh, let's talk about what all cloud services we have. Okay. Cloud services are basically something called a service model. Okay. There are three again. Uh, First one is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Okay, we'll talk about it one by one. What is software as a service? When you say software as a service, it is a software given to you directly on the internet. So whatever we are talking about on Google Meet, okay, Google Meet is a software which is given on the internet for you. Okay, is the best example. Or your Gmail or Yahoo email. Okay, those are softwares. But where are they running? They are running on their cloud or their infrastructure. You don't have to worry about where is it running from. You are just worried about how I can log in, okay, how I can get the service from that software, how I can go into the meetings, how I can access the email, how I can configure the email box as such. So those facilities can given to you, but not the actual service which is running on their hardware. So you are just user of it, you are not a platform engineer for them. Okay, so you're only end user. So if you see, those are also called as application services, and this is one of the commonly used service model in all the cloud market. Okay, because if you see, Gmail has the largest market share. If you see Google Meet, Cisco Cloud, WebEx, those are meeting collaboration tools in all the organizations which are being used now. Those are very commonly used, right? If you see the WhatsApp, WhatsApp is the messaging system, right? So it's running on their hardware, but you are just only logging into it, and you will get a UI, user interface to use it. That's it. So how it is being delivered to you is managed by a third party vendor, and you are just user of it, and it is doing all those services through internet again. So that is software as a service. Then, okay, I just lost one more. If you see, majority of SaaS applications run directly through web browser, as we are currently also doing it. And nowadays on PDA, like mobile, you are just worried about downloading it and installation. That's it. And you can start working on the tools or services. That is software as a service. Okay. Then platform as a service. So when you say platform, it's something bigger than your software. When you say platform, it's actually given more authority or more rights or permission to you to perform something on that software which is provided on the cloud. So for example, you want to develop something or you want to deploy something as a website. So cloud provider will give you a platform to deploy the website, deploy the functions, or deploy the databases, storages. So these kind of services are platform as a service. Okay. So, and you have more control than the software as a service. You have, for example, you can write your code and deploy it to the cloud. So if you see, uh, it will give you some components of certain software while being used mainly for applications. And if you see, like again, it will deliver a framework for you as a you are a developer and you want to build something on top of it, and then you can customize those applications for you and then deploy onto the cloud. So that is called as platform as a service. And how it is being delivered is almost again internet based, and there is a shared model where you have some permission to do it, and cloud has given you the framework which is managed by cloud. If you see, all the server, storage, networking can be managed by enterprise or a third party provider. So for example, Azure will give you the platform, and as a developer you have the code and deploy it to the code. So you have half like 50% of sharing the control of the platform as a service. Okay. We will go through the demo when you come to know how that is being done as a shared service model. Okay. And the last one, the service infrastructure as a service. This is a core of cloud computing. When you say core, cloud runs on a hardware, right? Um, and hardware is virtualized for you. When you say virtualized, um, it is being shared at a different level. So something called as hypervisor. Okay. Hypervisor runs on a bare metal hardware. So you have large amount of memory, large amount of CPUs, and large amount of network spaces. And then on top of it, hypervisor runs, and hypervisor will actually cater the virtual machines, networks, and storages for all the users, and no one knows that it is shared at the hardware level. It is sliced basically. And all these computing based services are called infrastructure as service. So you say virtual machine, network, subnet, IP addresses, application gateways, okay, storages. Those are purely hardware-based services where you don't have, your hardware to buy, and then you can go for cloud to provision them for you. And that is called as infrastructure as a service. Okay. You see, those are highly scalable and automated compute resources. So when you say compute resources, so for example, you are currently running your laptop, right? And you want to, you don't have any machine which is highly, computing. Like your machine is from 8 GB, 16 GB, but you want something which is highly performing, like 120 GB RAM or 1020 core CPUs. So such computing you don't afford to get, like you don't have money to get in your organization. Then you go to cloud and then ask cloud to provision such machine for you. For example, you don't have storage at your normal computers. You want to store something on your cloud. So for example, you have Google Drive, right? So Google Drive is a software as a service, but at behind the scene, they have provisioned storages. So how storage is being provisioned? Those are infrastructure as a service. Okay. Then it's fully self-service. You have control on everything in this service. You get a virtual machine. You can change the configuration for hardware. You can change the configuration of how you can access it. You can change the networking, and even you can change the disk or storages attached to that hardware. So everything is controlled by you in this service model. Okay. A previous to compare with software as a service, you don't have much control, you can only use it. For platform as a service, you have half, or nearly 30-40% of control, that where you can deploy your code. But for infrastructure as a service, you have full control. Okay. So and again, it's on demand whenever you want and whenever you need them. So for example, you want to buy something right now, and you don't want that resource in 2-3 months of time, then you can delete them. Again, you want something into next 3-4 months, you can again buy them. So it's kind of on demand and as and when you need it. So you don't have to buy outright, like upfront. So you buy it now and use it for long. That is not the case. You can use it for your usage for 1, 2, 3 months, and then you can delete that. So that is the advantage of infrastructure. So you have all the controls, but then you need to have that skills in your organization, that someone can do that provisioning for you. So that technical skill set also need to be there. Okay. Then I was talking about the ownership for all these services, right? Who has the control on what? So if you see on-premise means your data center or your machine right now, which you are currently using, for example. Okay, you have, so blue are the used by you, okay, managed by you, and red are managed by the vendor or the cloud service provider. So when you say blue, if you see on the on-premise section here, okay, you have control on everything: runtime, middleware, OS, or servers, or storages, or network, everything. You can change your IP address by setting up a DHCP. You can change the IP address when you change your vendor for internet. That kind of stuff you can do it. You can change your application, you can remove, install anything on your laptop, right? Or a data center. So you have 100% control. When you say infrastructure as a service, you have uh, full control on what you run. But if you see on the managed by vendor, those are virtualization till networks. So you have hardware part with them, but you can have the um, access on the application, data, runtime, and the OS. So basically, the OS is most important part, where you can install your softwares or any other tool set to use that infrastructure. But actual virtualization is with vendor. Okay. So I was talking about virtualization where hypervisors and everything is running. So this is the red part, 4 blocks. Those are with still with the vendor. But still, there are few new techniques. You can have a control on networking as well. Okay, I can show you when we have a demo. Even storage also you can control them. Yeah. Not the virtualization, because virtualization is the base of the cloud, so they don't give you that permission to handle it. Um, then, if you compare infrastructure as a service to platform as a service, you'll get something less controlled approach. Everything is with vendor in red. You only have applications and the data with you. Okay. When you say applications, it's your source code which you want to deploy. If you have anything which you built or develop, and the data which is being used by your application is managed by you. But everything behind the scene is managed by the vendor, like the infrastructure to show the website, to use the traffic between the your website to user, or where that website is being deployed, either a container or a VM or any other hardware or software assets. Those all being controlled by vendor. If you see these red parts. And when you compare software as a service, as I said, you are only using it. Nothing is in your control. Okay, so everything is rent. All the aspect of service is managed by vendor. You're just using it. So this is how you can compare on-premise to all these uh, shared services model. Okay. Then I think these are the base of cloud. We'll go through cloud security in a bit, and we can talk about why we need it. Basically, when you say you are using a cloud, you are risking your application data, everything on internet, right? You are just using it, or even if you have a control, the hardware or some point of time, even traffic data, it's still with the cloud service provider. So that is a risk, right, for everyone. Why companies are taking that risk? Not just because they want to give everything to cloud, or they don't want to manage it or support it. Cloud service providers had made that trust between all the organization or users of that cloud, that they made sure 100% security is maintained by the service provider. And that's why people are moving towards going from on-premise to cloud. Okay. If you see, it's the technology of policy services and the controls to protect your data, applications, and the environments in it. So when you say data, whether you are provisioning something as a database or storages, you are putting some files there. How do you protect them? How cloud is protecting you for you? Okay. So how the application which is deployed as a website or function or any uh, logic applications as such, how are they secure? So there is something which is provided by cloud, or you need to do something to make sure your application and data or environment is secure. Okay. So where is it focused on? If you see, you need to ensure the privacy of data across the networks. So when you say across the networks, when you deploy something on cloud, uh, you need to make sure where is it accessed from. For example, since the cloud is on internet, your users are using it from anywhere, right? So how would you make sure that your data across the networks is, you know, privatized? How do you make that privacy? Then if you see the cyber security concerns like the DDoS attack or any malwares which are thrown into your applications, when you say um, those are multi-cloud services, for example, AWS and Azure, if you are using both of them, you need to communicate between them, right? But how do you communicate them? Either it should be a dedicated network or something else. So you need to make sure that every aspect of your cloud is secure. Okay. Then how do you make sure your users are not being exposed, or devices or softwares are not being exposed to any vulnerabilities? For example, you have a very good application which is famous in all over world, and you have you know 1 million users. Okay, then you have the database with you, and you have that user base, everything is with you, their email, their phone numbers and everything, right? And you put the data on the cloud. So how that is being protected, that is also an important focus when you talk about security in the cloud. We'll talk about how this is being done in most of the organizations. Okay, if you see, there are major five pillars of the cloud security. First one is data security, then access management, then governance, this business continuity planning, and the legal compliance. We will talk about one by one. When you say data security, how do you go for an uh, privacy of your data? So, for example, you have uh, number of mm, number of users which are very very rich, okay, and you are working into a investment banking, okay, and you have their data with you. You don't want to share them, share that data with anyone in the world. How do you secure them? So data security is the first and foremost part in any of the cloud security methods. So how do you do that? So there are few methods where you can mask the data into the database. For example, you don't want to share the email address or name or even address part. You can mask them. So whenever it is exposed to any of the internet-based application, those are marked as XXXX or a blank, uh, you know, black line. So those are masked within your databases directly. There are few more techniques like you can put your database into a private network. So, for example, you have a application which is being used, on the internet, but behind the scene you have a database deployed. So when you say database, either it is SQL, Oracle, MySQL, or any Sybase, depends which one you want to use. Or sometime it is MongoDB nowadays. Those are NoSQL databases. But when you say databases, those are also need to be provisioned somewhere on the cloud. But those are internet based. If you want to secure them, you can mark them as a private network resource. So how do you do that? You have the provisioning from a cloud service provider that you limit the IP addresses which are being uh, accessed or allowed to use that database. For example, your only application should access the database, no one else. So that kind of security you can put it across. Then access management. When you say access management is only about the users of your application and what all permission you can give them. So, for example, in the cloud, there is something called as role-based access control. So, what is role-based access control? You have a big organization, you want to give access to your cloud resources. So there are multiple roles in the cloud. For example, reader, contributor, owner, or any specific customized roles as well. When you say reader, can only read the resource configuration. Okay. For example, you have given a reader to one of the user. He can only see the um, name of the virtual machine, even the IP address of the virtual machine, but he would not be able to access it or change it. Okay, so that is best example. Um, Other example would be they can open the database, they can only run the select queries. Okay, because for example, you have a database engineer in your organization, want to do something as a development. He can only do the read part of it. But some point of time, if they are DBAs, they want more access. You can change their role to contributor, so they can go and create the service, store procedures, triggers, cursors, or any other database activities as such. They can change it. Um, as you might be familiar of development methodologies, you have a repository of your code, right? So, and those are also you can put it on cloud, but who can access them and who can change that code? So you can give that access to only developer group. Okay, developers can only change the code and check in their code into the repositories. So that is something called as access management. It's something called as role-based access control on the cloud. So that will make sure your resources are only accessed by someone who has that permission. Okay? Then the governance. So sorry. So governance is, for example, you have a very good amount of resources in your cloud. Okay, there are 1,000 virtual machines. There are 100 applications running, even 10 100 databases running on the cloud. How would you manage the billing of it? Then how do you make the structure for your organization that every department has a different subscription for them or different resource quota for them? These kind of governance techniques come under the cloud governance. So I was talking about quota. So when you say quota, for example, you have 10 departments in your organization, and you have a cloud, public cloud being used, um, and there is smallest department. You can put a quota to that department as a maybe 10 virtual machines should be provisioned, not more than 10. 5 databases from that particular department can be provisioned. So resource-based quota can be provided per subscription per department. So that is one of the governance technique. Other governance technique is how would you go for connecting your on-premise Active Directory to your subscription models. So, for example, there are 10 departments. Okay, so in 10 departments, they are hosted on the different email addresses. So, for example, within your organization, there are 10 email configurations. How do you give that access to the cloud? Is you can get the Active Directory integrated with your cloud and make sure you have uh, multi-factor authentication to them, and then you configure self-service for password change. All these come under governance. Okay, but there are when you say governance, you are only setting the rules or policies. Okay, and when you say policies are global, so, for example, you have policy one, which will allow only 10 machines. You can apply to some of the departments. Uh, Another policy two, which can only be for running your resources only within Indian region. Okay, so that is one of the policy. If you want only in the UK region, then only UK region will be used. So these are governance techniques which are being used to secure your cloud. The next is business continuity planning. So when you say business continuity, it has a background. Why it is coming into picture? Um, you have a risk of cloud getting down at some point of time because you have a networks running, hardware running. There is, there are a lot of problems on the vendor side because vendor is also or cloud service provider also running that cloud on some hardware somewhere in the world, right? So they have their own data centers which are given to being used for end users, but they have that data center somewhere in the world. For example, Azure has almost 150 data centers all over the world. When you say data center, it is located somewhere and it is having a very big hardware and network cables, air conditions running. Okay, in that environment, how would you feel when you um, cut down any cable or burn down anything or something goes off, electricity goes off? um, how the cloud provider give you uh, the backup of your services, or how do you have a alternative provision for your resources which are already there on the cloud. So for example, you have 10 virtual machines are running already, and all the applications are running fine in the production, but then some point of time there is a failure from the vendor side. So business continuity planning has that, provisions. You make sure you have copy of your existing cloud resources somewhere else in the cloud, so that one goes off, the other resources can be up and running, and your application is also up and running for all the time. So you don't be worry about the failures from the cloud service provider. But anyway, you need to provision them, you need to manage the services as provided by cloud, but still you need to manage them. How would you manage one UK region and one India region? For example, even in the Europe, you have North Europe and West Europe. In the US, you have East US and West US. You can create the resource in both the regions. One goes off, you can provision the other one. So this is business continuity planning. So even you can use it as a security model for you. And then the legal compliance. So when you say legal compliance, it's something related to um, rules being set by government or any authority within your organization, that these are the rules should be followed every time. So for example, I'm working into Europe. Okay, I can't share any data outside Europe. How would you manage it? So these are the compliance rules. Okay, and there is something called as GDPR. Okay, Global Data Protection sorry, GDPR rule. So in under GDPR, you can't move a data from Europe region to any other region. So how do you manage that? So these are the there are few um, concept where you can manage it by privatizing your application or data to restrict it should not go beyond the region. Okay, so that is something called as legal compliance. Okay, then we can have some question answers, and then we can go for the rest of the part, sir.
No problem.
Yeah,
Anybody? Rishi?
any questions are welcome. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. I will not be scolding you guys for asking simple questions.
Any question?
When we used to have similar sessions, um, when there is no question, people either don't understand all, they understand everything, and they don't want to ask anything.
Anything.
When we used to do this, we used to keep calm, no questions. But you can post any questions to me on the chat window if you're uh, not willing to ask right now. If it is going beyond your head, that is also fine. I can get into a detailed one. Uh, जसं वाटत असेल की काही समजत नाही आणि मराठीत सांगायचं तरी पण मला सांगा, असं काही प्रॉब्लेम नाही, सांगेन. कुठला पार्ट समजला नाही किंवा काय, मी शेअर करेन तुमच्याबरोबर PPT. नंतर जरी मला विचारलं तरी चालेल, असं काही नाही. We'll go the next point.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yeah. So next part. I'm still sharing. No, just a minute.
No.
Let me share. Share it again. Let me know once you see it. You able to see now?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll go through one of the largest um, cloud share in the market, which is Azure Cloud, which is from Microsoft. If you see, it has almost 200 product and services, on the cloud, which can run on the internet, and which will give you um, help you bring your new solutions to life. When you say new solutions, you are trying to solve something uh, new and have that used in the future. Um, Azure Cloud, you have build, run, and manage application across multiple clouds and on-premise. When you say multiple clouds, Azure has integration between other clouds like AWS, Amazon, or Google, which is GCP, Google Cloud Platform, or even I think Oracle and any other cloud era. All these cloud service provider are being integrated with Azure. You have those plugins, you can use them within your provisioning methods, and you can integrate the clouds whenever you want to use it as a hybrid uh, frameworks. And when you say there are hell lot of tools being used within Azure, which will give you, benefits to deploy any type of application. I have been using Azure for almost 4 years now, and I haven't seen um, there is any software which is not being able to run on the cloud. Uh, there are few, I know them, but at least 99% everything you can run it on Azure. Okay, and there are few more coming, every month, day, everything is new in any cloud, because the need or the requirement from the end user is drastically changing. So they need to cope up with the new change, whatever coming into the market, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, or Internet of Things, you know, IoT. That is also coming into Azure, every cloud for that matter. Okay, so we'll go through Azure portal. Let me know once you see it. Okay, window, just a minute. Yeah, you able to see my screen?
This is visible.
Yeah. So this is Azure console. It is called as portal. So it's basically portal.azure.com. Uh, so how do you access this? You can use it through your personal email address. First time, you can use it through your credit card, and they will not charge you for, I think, 12,000 a year. Okay, 1 year. So first year you can use 12,000 as a free resources. And then after that, you can go for pay as you go model. So pay as you go, that means you have your resources created, and billing will start on the day when the resource is created in Azure, till that resource is being deleted in Azure. So this is how you can access it. I'm using my personal ID. uh, and then if you see, there is something called as create a resource. If you see, as I said, there are a lot of services being provided by uh, any cloud provider. And if you see, the list is like this. If you go for machine learning, analytics, blockchain, compute, you know, even the integration, as I said, Internet of Things, migrations, networking, even security. You want to secure separately from cloud. You want to use your own security, you can use them. Storages, websites. All these services are being provided by any cloud provider. If you go inside any of the service, you will get much more. For example, if you go into compute, okay, you will see the list of resources you can provision. For example, you can create a containers. There is something called as Docker. I'm not sure you know about it, but uh, the Docker is a containerized platform, the smallest part of virtualization. And there are VMs. If you see on the right side, you have Windows, you have Ubuntu, you have Red Hat. There are a few more. Those are not being seen, but there are a lot of VM types you can provision. There are cache, like you want to store something on the Azure and used as a cache, uh, that can be also being provisioned. If you see databases, there are SQL, which is from the actual SQL vendor. If you want Azure's SQL, you can use Azure's SQL. If you want to use NoSQL databases, I'm not sure you know about NoSQL databases. In one line, the, currently most of the databases are relational databases, right? You have table, you have primary key, and you relate one table with another table. But there is something called as unstructured data. Okay, so that is something called as NoSQL databases. So in NoSQL databases, there's something called as Cosmos DB or even the MongoDB. All these NoSQL databases also being provided by Azure. There are some enterprise versions for SQL servers. You need to manage them, uh, kind of platform as a service. Those are also here. Okay. And there are analysis services where you can run some queries on your databases and get some graphs and everything. It's called as analysis services. What else? As I said, Internet of Things. You you might be aware that there is something called as Internet of Things. When you want to um, integrate your devices on the internet. So, for example, you want to integrate your mobile's camera to internet and use it to uh, use it as a webcam in your home somewhere. You want to monitor something in your car shed. Okay, you can place a mobile there for some point of time, and then you can share that mobile's camera on the internet by using IoT hub. Okay, so these kind of and I'm currently working on IoT hub as well, where we are working on uh, parcel services, where every courier person has a PDA device with them, is similar to mobile, and they can scan the items and deliver them to the actual customer, and we can track them. Uh, where are they going, what is the nearest delivery, everything is tracked within the IoT. Okay. What else I can show you? Maybe networking. So if you see, as I said, network has all virtualized. You have virtual network. You can create your own network for your organization by using virtual network, and you can divide them into subnets, and you can assign them to any department. You can, subnet 1 can be used by this department, subnet 2 can be used by other departments, and you can isolate them within the cloud. Okay, they can use their IP addresses from that range of subnet from the virtual networks. Okay. Um, there is something called as traffic manager, which is largely being used. When you say traffic manager, name itself suggests that it is managing the traffic. When you say traffic, it is your internet traffic or your applications traffic. So for example, I am accessing your web application from Europe. So your application which is deployed in Europe will be accessible to me, and not the application which is deployed into other regions. Because I'm into Europe, I will get the nearest region, okay, to access, so that it will be faster for me. So for example, someone is access it from India, then the web app deployed in Indian region in Azure will be accessed from the traffic manager. So traffic manager is global load balancer, which will route the traffic between the regions. Okay, depending upon the request, where is it coming from, which region it is coming from. Okay, so this is traffic manager. So all these are compute and network services being provided from Azure. Okay, let's dive into a small demo, quick one, which will give you an idea how we can provision a resource like website, and then we can deploy something on the that website. Okay. In Azure, um, websites or application services are called as app services. Okay, you can create a app service. When you create an app service, will give you the form to fill up. Where do you want to create it? For example, I'll create a new resource group. Uh, what is resource group? Resource group is a logical container for your resources. It's logical. It's just a name where you want to store your application. So when you say resource group, it can be anywhere in the any region, but the application will be deployed into a specific region. Okay, so this is what I have created, but you can create a new and then name it and click on OK. It will give you a new resource group. You need to name the app, for example, SPP. And you have a choice how you want to publish the web application. You can publish through a code or a Docker container or a static website. Okay, so these are the three ways you can deploy your application. Code means you will write a code, and which will be published through either Visual Studio or Eclipse or any other IDE. Docker container is basically you will have a Docker file, and you need to give the Docker file to Azure, and then it will create a container on the fly for you and then deploy. And static web app is a simple, static web app file, or HTML or API, which will be created on the fly here, and put it on the your resource. So we'll go through code section, and as a selection, we'll set it as a .NET 6. Where you want to provision it, probably I am in Europe, so I can set it as West Europe. If I go down the line, and sorry, I just missed this one, operating system. You have both options. You want to run it on Linux, you want to run it on Windows. So when you say these operating system, these are telling vendor or Azure that provision a Windows container behind the scene and run my application on that container or VM. So all the OS related part is Windows. When you select Linux, all the OS related part will be as a Ubuntu or any other Linux flavors. Okay. So we'll go through Windows now for an example or a demo. Let me wait for it. It is loading. Just give me. So West Europe. Now it is loading the app service plan. So there are whenever you provision something, any resource on a cloud, okay, you will be asked for uh, what type of resource you need, how much money it needs, to buy that resource. So there is something called as pricing model in any cloud. Okay. So for Azure, it is something called as app service plan for app services, and that plan will give you the size of your application. So when you say change size, it will give you multiple options you can buy. Okay, so for example, you are just testing it for your usage. The smallest one is CPU are 100 in total, but then only few of them are used. 1.7 GB memory, the smallest application you can run on. Okay, but how much it is giving you? 5 to 5 9 per month. Okay, if you go beyond this, there are 10,000 rupees per month, 21,000 rupees per month. It depends how you want to run them. So, but you have the choice, okay, and you can change it even after you, for example, you selected S1 right now. You want to change it to P1, V2 later, you also can do that. Okay. App service plan is just a name, and um, it will be used when the container or VM run behind the scene. It will give in this name, and on that resource, the actual website is being deployed. Okay, and if you go next, it will be giving you a deployment details. Where is it? Where is the code coming from? Either the GitHub or your local repository or somewhere else. The application code is coming from. So we are not using any GitHub, so you can skip it. But this option has given you can directly connect your GitHub repository to your application. You want to enable a network injection, like for example, there is inbound and outbound traffic you want to set for your application. That also can be done when you create it right now. Yeah. Then the monitoring. You want to monitor your application within Azure. That for example, something goes wrong. How do you find it? So you need to check the logs. You need to check the application performance, how it is behaving, right? After getting some load on the application, how is it behaving? Okay, so such details can be given by application insight. Okay? Application insight is again one more service within Azure, which is given to you to be used to monitor your applications, and you can stop it. That is not a problem. Not a problem. When you provision, there is some cost around it. So because it will run through your application, get some logs, put it across into a storage account, and then show it as a reports and some graphics as such. That's why it is being cost around it. So I'm just setting it to no. And then the next one is tag. So when you say tag, you are tagging your application against some value. For example, you are working into different departments, and you have a application groups. So you can group them into one application group name and use it as a tag. So for example, some applications are only used on the mobile, so you can use it as a mobile app. You can name it as a, mobile here. And this tag can be used for other resources as well, so that whenever you want to check the billing of similar applications or grouped resources, you can use these tags. Okay, I'm not using it, but just for demo. And next one, you can just hit the create button, review and create. And once you create it, it will give you the deployment status. Okay, and it will show you uh, what all resources behind the scene it is actually creating for you. Okay, if you see, deployment is in progress. Okay? And it will show you what all resources are being provisioned just to make sure your web app is running. If you see, the first one is application service plan. Okay, as I said, that pricing model and the container. So that is first to create. And when you say here, it's something called as application service plan. It is actually creating a virtual machine behind the scene for you, and then give it to you back. Okay, if you go to the resource, actual resource, so this is what we have created. So this is just a resource, there is no application running on it. Okay, how do you access it? So this is being given to you on the screen itself. You can just click on browse, the application will be opened, but there is no code or nothing is there, right? But it is saying that your application is up and running and waiting for the content. Okay, so what we can do is, you have sharing the ownership. So the part which is just done now is actually a vendor side part. Okay, they have given you a platform to create the infrastructure for you, or the platform for you, and then the part left with you is to deploy or develop a code and deploy to the application resource. So I have a smallest application, um, and which will randomly generate the uh, weather forecast. It will give you, either freezing, bracing, chilly, or mild, warm, hot, depend on the number which is randomly generated. Okay, the smallest one page or one liner app. Okay, we, we can use it as a demo. Uh, when you say we can debug it locally first. Okay, when you say debug it here without debug, you can run it. Just give me some time, it will run on my machine, and then we can deploy it to the cloud, and then we can access it. So if you see this is running locally. Okay, local host, and there is some port, and it is giving you my weather forecast. So if you see, the date, time is coming, and temperature is 12, and it is showing you some details from my map which is there in the code. If I hit it again, it will change randomly. Okay, it will change randomly, but it is currently running locally. And if you want to run this on Azure, you need to publish this application to Azure. And as I said, I'm just closing it now. There are multiple ways you can deploy your code to web application. Okay, so for example, you can go here. There is something called as deployment center. Okay, let me know once you see it. So if you see, there is something called as source. Source means your code. Where is it coming from? Either you want to, local Git option. There is a GitHub or Bitbucket. These are all repositories. Okay, and if you want to manually deploy it through a push, you can use the external Git as well. There is something called as FTPS, which is securely deployment. You can use this password and create a zip on locally, and then you can push it as a FTP service. Okay, that is also one of the options you can uh, deploy them. And the simple option, whenever you want to test something and you are playing around it, this is the simplest option. You can go right click and then just publish it. So publish which actually create a profile for you. So uh, when you say profile, it will actually create a your application name with the publish XML. Okay, and profile is used within your Visual Studio, which is actually connected to your Azure. Okay, it will ask you for username, password, and then it will be connected to your uh, Azure portal. Then let me just delete it. Delete the profile. Okay, let's create a profile again, and I'll show you how it is being done. Okay, so where are we deploying? We are deploying to Azure, right? See next, where are we deploying within Azure, which is app service, and we selected Windows when we created the resource, right? So you can select Windows. When you say next, it will actually give you option to log in, because I was already logged in. That's why it is showing my subscription name pay as you go. And within the subscription, you can see the application as well. Okay, it is just a container. It is not being run at till now. Okay, then when you say finish, it will create a profile for you in Visual Studio.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Screen not visible properly. What you are doing is not
Oh,
seen.
oh, okay. Wait. Let me go back. Let me stop it and do it again. Yes. Let me know once you see it again. You able to see?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Let me do it again. Let me delete it. Okay. So let's start again. So when you want to deploy something from your Visual Studio or any IDE, there's an option called as publish. Okay, when you say publish, you will come to this screen and it will actually give you an option to create the publish profile. What is publish profile? It is actually an integration between your IDE to Azure. Okay, so if you see here, where are we deploying? You can select it, Azure. What is the app service plan you used? Either Windows, Linux. So we selected Windows when we created. So we can select Windows. Then it will ask you for login. Because I was already logged in, that's why it is not asking. But it will ask you for login. Then you can log in, and then it will select the subscription for you. Depends on what subscription you are in. Either it is a free tier or pay as you go model. And then inside the subscription, you'll see the resource group and the application container. Then you can select that and then just click finish. it will give you the profile. So once you hit close, it will show you the profile here and it will say ready to publish. So you can click on publish. What it will do, it will connect and build it first on locally. It will connect to Azure, it will deploy the application, and it will restart the web app on Azure. You can see in the logs here. Okay, so build has started. So build means it will actually create a DLL for whatever code you have. Okay, .cs file or any other. Even if you have a Java, it will create a jar and then compile it. Okay. Just wait for complete this. So as I said, it will create a DLL. Then the second step, it will publish it. And what it is publishing, again, whatever DLL you have created in the first step. If you see, all the files from your code base are being deployed to the Azure. Okay, if you see this app settings, then uh, the first app depths, and then the DLL. And if you now see, it will automatically open the website which is already been deployed. You see, go down, it will deploy everything, successfully install website and successfully deployed the restarted the application. Okay, so why it is not showing you anything? Because we have the uh, URL, right? And that's why it is not showing you the uh, actual code. If you see this one, it will show you the actual application which is running. When you change it, it will actually change the weather forecast. Okay, and where is it running now? Earlier we are using localhost, right? And now it is running on Azure. And you can also access it right now because it is open to everyone. Okay, if you want to try, you can try it. um, this is how we deploy the applications. There is uh, new and faster ways to deploy. Okay, and whenever there is a application development in agile mode, every 15 days or every 7 days the application being deployed onto production. It is so fast. Okay, 10 developers are changing the code, uh, putting the change into a repository. um, how would we manage it? There is something called as DevOps pipelines. Okay, uh, the repositories are connected to that pipelines, get the code automatically whenever there is a change, build it, deploy it to Azure, and give back the application to developers. So this is how all automated nowadays, and that's where I am currently working. Everything is automated, no manual intervention, not even getting the code from the repository. Okay. That's where we are currently working now. Okay, so if you see uh, the application now on here. So even if you click here, it will not go to the actual application because you don't have the end URL of the application. When you change it, it will start the application. Okay. Um, one more part we uh, had talked about as a security, right? And when you say security of the platform as a service, you have the permission to secure your, or you need to, or you should be securing your application. How will you secure it? So there are option, you can use. For example, you have security at the HTTPS level. Okay, you can create a certificate, and only certificate being installed on the machine, that machine can actually access the application. Otherwise, even if you have internet access and even if you have that URL with you, you're not able to access it if you don't have the certificate, valid certificate on your machine. So that is one more security you can add it. um, on the networking side also, you can add the security like inbound traffic, something called as inbound traffic, and you can put a restriction, you know an access restriction. You can add a rule, and you can say there are few IP addresses within your network can only access this application. You can restrict, you know, and you can say allow or deny. Depends. Some part you want to deny, you can change it to deny, and if you have some part you want to allow, you can allow. So there are a few options, like there are IP addresses, and even if you go for virtual network, and service tag is something. For example, one application wants to access another application, so you can use it as a service tag. So only application will be able to access other application, not me or you. Okay, not even IP addresses being used. So this kind of security you can use it. There is one more security you can use it, something called as private endpoints. So what is private endpoints? Is you want to restrict the full application only being accessed within your network boundary. So for example, access restriction will have similar option, but in private endpoints you have larger uh, subnet based restrictions. You can allow within your organization a department subnet can use the application, and some other departments won't be able to access it. You want to restrict within private endpoints. And when you say private endpoints, it will actually give you an option to select the networks. Okay, what all networks you can select, and then when you create them, it will show you here, and only that network resources, whatever, like either it is application within that network or a person within that network, only be able to access this application. So this is how you can secure them. um, there is something which we talked about, scalable, when we start the cloud computing, when we started this session. uh, when you say scaling, there are multiple scaling options. And what is scaling? Basically, when you want to change your hardware or change your performance units, you know. So there are two ways. One is vertical scaling, another is horizontal scaling. When you say vertical scaling, you change the hardware to a bigger level, increased level. And when you say horizontal scaling, you create one more service, application to cater the load. So for example, you have 10,000 users being, using your application, and only single web app instance is not able to handle it. So you will create one more instance behind the scene, and it will cater the request for you. So one is vertical scaling, which is on your screen right now. You can change the size, it will change the hardware for you. And the second option is horizontal scaling, which will give you an option to number of instances behind the scene can be changed to number of instances. For example, the highest one is 10 for this, and you can change it into custom as well, depending upon memory utilization, CPU utilization, or a request failure, customization. Those kind of scaling you can use to cater the request when you have a load on your application. So this is how you can secure and scale the application. Hope you understand well, and if you don't, then you can just ping me. We can talk about it. Yeah. If you have questions right now, you can ask. Where are you guys? Not able to see you. Yeah. Let me change my. I'm not able to see you. Yeah. Any questions? Let me stop sharing.
Hello, sir.
Just a bit. Hi, Rishikesh.
Yes, sir. How do you use IoT services on the cloud?
Okay. So let me give you one example. Let me open the portal again. Let me know once you see my screen, okay? Window. Sure. So in Azure, you have something called as IoT Hub, okay? This is again a platform as a service which will give you option to create the service here, and if you create the service, it will give you an option to add the devices. Okay, let us create it and close it or delete it later. But I'll just give you a brief. You go to Europe. Just I'll just create it right now. You able to see my screen, right? You able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let it create, and then we can talk about it. So it is showing you how it is creating it. So whenever you want to use the IoT services, you need to have the resources which are actual hardware resources with you. Okay, and why IoT needed? You have bunch of resources, hardware resources or devices with you, and you want to integrate all of them. So, for example, you have a fan in your home, you have a fridge in your home, you have a TV at your home, right? And all these are devices, and you want to integrate them and you want to handle them from internet. You are not at home, you want to switch off the TV, you just forgot it because lights are off, and probably when the light will come, it will again start up the TV. You don't have that control when you are in office. Okay, you want to try something that out, you can add IoT device on IoT hub. But for that, you need to have a IP address for your device, or um, in IMEI number as a mobile. You need to add that hardware configuration to IoT hub. That will be an integration point. Okay, because how would Azure know that there is a device called XYZ in the any world, in India, or in your home? How does it recognize? So there is these are the methods where cloud can recognize your device. You will be assigned as a static IP, okay, or a IMEI number as a global IMEI number, and that is your device. And your device has that networking capability. Because if you see there are new fans coming, or new fridge or any other devices coming as a IoT features. And what is that feature? Actually, they are having that configuration set in their machine. They can connect to a Wi-Fi, because when you say Wi-Fi, they are going to internet. Okay, and when they are going to internet, they will be assigned as a IP address. It should be static IP address so that it will not change in future, and you will lose that access for that resource or device. So this is how it works. And IoT Hub in Azure is one of the services which will integrate all these devices at one place. So if you see here, there is something called as devices here, and you can add the device. I'm not able to add it, but I'll give you just brief. Uh, Let me. Oh, it is not allowing me somehow. Just a minute. No, there is something wrong with my account maybe, but I'll tell you. This is the section, because I'm regularly using this in my current organization. I'm using a personal ID, that's why it is not able to show you. But if you see this device section, this is the major section in your IoT hub. It will give you an option to add the devices, and all the devices will have either the IMEI number or IP address assigned to them. They will also share a private key or a subscription key when you create them, when you want to log into that system and use it. Because when you say your device is at home, right? How can Azure access it? You need to share some credentials to use that device. So those credentials also can be configured in this IoT hub, and then you either stop, restart. If you want to send any messages to a device, all these stuff you can do it from IoT hub. Okay. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's fine. You are the one who got the C programming language certificate sometime back.
Yes, sir.
I was checking LinkedIn sometime back, so I just remember your name. Okay, it's fine.
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, tell me. Ask me.
Which platforms are being used on large scale?
Okay, large scale. So if you see in current market, if you see the platform like Service Bus, platform like Cosmos DB, platforms like even IoT. If you compare my current organization, okay, there are 70,000 devices on the road, on the road, which are being handled on IoT. So if you see the scale, 70,000 is very big. Okay, and they are now moving towards 80, 90, even 1 million. And I'm not sure how many devices it will go into next 2 3 years, okay, on the road. And what those devices are, a simple PDA device, like our mobile, right? This is one of the PDA device on the road, which is used by a courier guy. Okay, and if you see that scale, it's very big. For example, one more example I can give you. Mm, Even for investment banks, if you see the Kafka or service bus resources, those are very big. If you consider a credit card service, right? A credit card service. How many credit cards are there in the market right now? For example, one of the banks you can check, like HDFC. Right? HDFC has how many user base? Everyone must have their debit or credit card, right? And when they swipe it, where is it going through? When you swipe it or make a transaction, it goes through internet only. Okay, and how that card is being used, how that transaction is being done. So if you see that scale, it is one of the example which can be used from, as not Azure, but any cloud provider at large scale. Okay, all these transaction based systems are on cloud only. Okay, like messaging systems, service oriented architecture systems like service bus. Those are at large scale.
Okay, sir. And what is the difference means which cloud is best, Azure or AWS? You prefer?
This is this is this is good question, but if you compare both of them, those are uh, leading the market. If you see their quarterly reports of being used as a uh, per quarter, they are keep on changing. Sometime AWS goes up, sometime Azure goes up. But in my experience, Azure has uh, large base now, and the part ahead, gone ahead than AWS. GCP is still small. AWS is comparable to Azure, but Azure is much more bigger right now because they had a base earlier as a data center from Microsoft, because Microsoft was everywhere in the world, right? Okay. AWS was not at that position, and Microsoft has leveraged that advantage of being there in the uh, all the data centers are now converted to a actual data center or a region or availability zone in Azure. I would prefer Azure, but there is no comparison as such. You can use it either Azure or AWS, even GCP. Every cloud provider has their own advantages, disadvantages. Even for example, Azure has one service which is given at X amount of time, X amount of price, that can change in AWS, which is probably cheaper in AWS. People go for it, but sometimes that resource or service is uh, compromised with the security or compromised with the access controls. So in you need to be vigilant when you decide the Azure or AWS or any cloud provider. There are there are a lot of frameworks. There is something called as cloud adoption framework in Azure, which will give you the base. How would you decide you want to use Azure or not? Okay, where you can use it. So you have that framework with you. You can read the framework in Azure documentation as well. It will give you an idea how you can decide which uh, service or which Azure, which cloud provider you can use it. But depends. Even AWS has most of the capabilities. Okay, so it depends. There's no certain answer to your question, but it depends on you.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. My question is vertical scaling is better or horizontal as in
Okay.
term of dynamic?
Okay. So when you say vertical scaling, okay, vertical scaling has a pricing change. Okay, because when you say vertical scaling, you are changing the hardware. So, for example, you have a currently a virtual machine or a web app which is running on 1.5 GB, right? Or 2 GB RAM and 10 CPUs, which will cost you 5,000 right now. But when you scale at double, triple a price, so you need to decide what is the factor you want to scale it on, either the price or a um, or a integration or a scalability. When you say scalability, people are more bothered about is your application always available to 1,000 users all the time, right? So in that case, you can change the horizontal scaling to a higher level so that number of instances running behind the scene are more, so that 10,000 users can be catered. So it all depends on what is the strategy you want to. You want to have more money put on the service, or you want to have less money put onto a service and still you can scale it. So I would go for horizontal scaling for more time, because it will save you at least some amount. Hope that
Okay, sir.
answers your question, Rajwardhan.
Okay, sir.
Any other questions? You must be president of SoftClones, because there is no name. Okay, go ahead, go ahead. Ah, so when you say DevOps is not a technology, okay? First of all, it's a cultural change within any software organization. How they want to deploy their applications faster to production. That is what the DevOps means. And the name itself suggests dev and ops. So when you say dev, it is developers, and when you say ops, it is support people who are actually maintaining that software or application on the uh, either on premise or even on cloud. You need to collaborate both these departments, like development and the operations. But it all depends on how the current culture of the organization. Are they really changing the application very frequently? Like for example, in my current organization, we have monthly deployment, which is not an 100% DevOps criteria. Okay, but when you say a DevOps maturity level, people need to deploy very frequently, and that's where the DevOps come into picture, where you have a pipeline to deploy very frequently. You are changing the code on daily basis, even multiple times in a day. You build the application regularly within a day, test that application. One of the advantages of DevOps or a pipelines is you have a quality product going to production. You don't have a problems within your application which is going to production. You have, there is something called as left shift, okay, in DevOps. So when you say left shift, you are doing everything to secure and test and maintain your quality of your code before you go for deployment. So something called as code scanning. You test the code against the vulnerabilities. You test the code within your networks, within your outside your networks. You also go for a performance testing. All this is called as left shift. That is what is right side of it. Right side of it is actually production deployment. So whatever you do to maintain your quality is on the left side, which is a basic or first criteria for DevOps. Um, and it's not a tool based. There are a lot of tools being used in DevOps area, but DevOps is a culture, okay, to go faster onto production. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, no worries. What's your name? Okay, you're the one who sent me a LinkedIn request. You and someone, Sanika, I guess. I don't know. But you replace me. I was one time a SOFTCLONE president in 2005 or 2004. I don't remember. Ranjit sir might have aware of it. I don't know.
2004.
2004. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm getting older. Long-term memory loss, not the short.
Yeah.
Any more questions? You have 14 minutes still left. We can talk about it. Not a problem.
Hello, sir. My
Yeah,
Varsarani
what's
Patil, sir.
Varsha?
What is the main difference between the DevOps and clouds? Which
Oh,
is easy to understand.
these are two separate terminologies, also separate technologies as such, okay, or methodologies. You can't compare them at once. Those goes hand in hand, okay, always be there. When you say cloud, some part of DevOps will come. Uh, if there is a DevOps, definitely there is some part of cloud comes because they are interrelated. When you say cloud, you are deploying something onto cloud, and for deployment, there are DevOps and other terminology comes. And when you are have a DevOps, you are deploying the application either on cloud or on premise. So those are you cannot compare them, but those are go hand in hand. Okay, those are always be there as a pair.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
Many advantages like security and reliability, but what are the main disadvantages of cloud computing?
Okay. The major disadvantage is, for example, you are using as a platform as a service. You don't have control on the data. Okay. For example, there is a data which is scattered across the cloud. Sometimes there are vulnerabilities seen on the access of the data. That is one of the major risk when you have a critical data in your application. For example, you're working in the banks or asset management or in any government, you know, organizations or institutes. That is one of the major, you cannot say disadvantage, but still it is a merit or a demerit as such. Uh, Other is you have to pay sometimes more when you are going through uh, from on-premise to cloud. For example, you are running very small organization having 10, 20 virtual machines. Probably you have your own data center within your organization. You can run them. But when you go to cloud, probably that will cost you more sometimes when you scale up, scale, and down scale. That is one more. And the other one, which will be one more I can think of. What else is the demerit? Yeah. So, for example, there are something called as service level agreement. Okay. You need to choose the services and availability of the services very wisely when you deploy them because there is something called a service level agreement from either Azure or AWS. And what is service level agreement? They will tell you that this is the percentage I will support you or this service will be available for. For example, 99.9%. There is always a chance that 1% that application or service may go down. What will you do? So these are still not disadvantage, but you need to take care of these demerits. Okay. Hope that answers your
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Sahil.
Sir, since my question is that how does it actually work? Means, as you told that we get kind of resources on portal.azure.com.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose I get Windows 11 with
Mm-hmm.
RAM 16 GB
Mm-hmm.
and 1 TB SSD. So
Correct.
how
So,
they will how they will get a performance, that kind of performance?
okay. So as I was talking about in one of the slides about virtualization, right? So all the cloud providers runs on virtualization. Okay. And what is virtualization? Basically, they have large amount of hardware with them in any data center. Okay. On that hardware, for when you say large amount of hardware, you have lots of CPUs as a hardware, lots of memory, and lots of hard disk. You can think of, and you are putting into a data center. These are all scattered within your data center, and those are not connected as such. But how do you give that access to end user when you provision a Windows machine on Azure is something called as hypervisor. Okay. Hypervisor is a virtualization software which will give an isolation to an end user that will not show you what is being shared from that hardware. So it is running on top of that hardware and it will slice the hardware for you and it is being shared for every user. For example, Ranjit sir and me and you are running 3 virtual machines, okay? But the underlying hardware is still same. But hypervisor will create the virtual machine for you, me and Ranjit sir using that same hardware. Okay, and hypervisor's duty to make sure you don't know how much memory is being shared with Ranjit sir or me. Okay, so this is how the slicing of resources being used in something called as virtualization. Okay, this is how it works behind the scene, and how the performance is being given to you. It all depends on something called as accelerators in hypervisors, and those will be used as when you're. It is very low level computing. Even I had a chance to work on one of the hypervisors for IBM. So we know slicing is very minute detail. Okay, uh, you'll create a workspace within the hypervisor for you, and then workspace will give the configuration settings for performance that you'll use 3 GB of RAM. You will use this part of OS, and Ranjit sir will use some other part of OS. It depends how that configuration is made. So this is how it works. It's all virtualized.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one more question from my side.
Yes, sir.
Is there a relation between Hadoop framework and cloud?
Not really. So when you say Hadoop, uh, it's a data or client server mechanism as such. But Hadoop can run on cloud, okay? Because Hadoop has a separate framework to run, but it also needs the hardware to run, right? So for example, you want to run Hadoop on your machine, can be different when you run it on a cloud. But there is no relation as such. Hadoop is a framework for data analysis or any other kind of work. But you want to run it on cloud, possible, but there is no relation as such. There's no relation. But there are more,
Okay.
HDFS related, even Scala is still there on Azure. You can run Scala, Apache. even Hadoop has more workbase, but it's non. You cannot run on premise. You can also run it on Azure. That's there,
Okay.
but there's no comparison you can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are in the last part of that session. So anybody can give feedback regarding the session.
Sir, I want to give.
Yeah.
Good afternoon once again, sir. And thank you so much for attending this and accepting our invitation. This was the different subject you had taken, and this is the craziest. What we can say, this is the craziest subject that is going on. So thank you so much, and this session was really amazing, and the answers which we are expecting, and that answers we have got. Thank you so much, sir.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, thanks for giving me opportunity to present myself as mentor for you guys. Whenever you want to talk about any topic, um, even I'm not available on the call. Probably you can message me on LinkedIn. I can probably answer your questions if you have more questions on it anytime. You can post me a message on my email. Even if you don't get any answer to email, put it a LinkedIn message. Okay, LinkedIn, I'm regularly being accessed, regularly being in touch. Uh, Not using Facebook much, and that was a rare case where sir caught me, and but I can't say no. Uh, I had I had past relation with Ranjit sir. We have been shared 3 years. I know how we did.
Yes.
He can share more experiences when we are offline, other than naughtiness. Okay.
Not that much naughty, but a little bit you are naughty. Okay.
And that was still there. Okay.
That is required.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for giving session on that cloud computing
Yeah. Yeah.
and spending
That's
your
that's
time, family time with our ISRE family. So it's very nice.
yeah. We'll be connected. We'll be connected always. Not a problem.
Yes.
All the best to all these students. I don't fancy about word student. You guys are probably future developers or maybe cloud engineers. Not sure. Maybe agile managers. But see you in the market some point of time when you get into. Just ping me on LinkedIn if you need any help. Probably I will be there. Okay. All the best. All the best for you last year. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Bye and take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.